The Durand Line is widely seen as a disputed border, but its true significance is as a strategic instrument. For over a century, this frontier has not just divided territory, it has defined statecraft. This is the story of how a geographical boundary became a geopolitical weapon, and how the very strategies used to manage it unleashed a feedback loop of instability, ultimately empowering forces that now challenge the modern statehood of all involved. To understand the Durand Line is to understand how a grievance, once weaponized, can evolve beyond control. By the late 19th century, the British Empire had mapped much of the world, from the deserts of Arabia to the peaks of the Hindu Kush. And the London's maps, India was the jewel in the crown. But to the north lay a shadow, Afghanistan. A rugged frontier of tribes, mountains, and complex loyalties that empires struggled to control. Afghanistan stood between two rival powers, Britain in India and Russia in Central Asia, locked in what became known as the Great Game. The British Empire, entrenched in its Indian colony, viewed Central Asia through this single strategic lens. This relentless rivalry with Tsarist Russia became the primary British objective, to secure the northwestern frontier of British India from Russian expansionism and the early rumblings of revolutionary communism, deemed as an ideological threat to the capitalist West. Afghanistan, positioned between the two empires, was not a partner but a pawn, a buffer state. Yet, Britain distrusted such fluid human shields. It required a fixed cartographic solution. In 1893, this logic culminated in the Durand Line, a definitive boundary drawn to separate two empires, creating a permanent fracture in the process. Afghanistan's ruler, Amir Rahman Khan, had come to power after years of civil war, a pragmatic survivor who ruled by intrigue and balance. The British, however, considered him both an ally and a threat. So they sent Sir Mortimer Durand, the Foreign Secretary of British India, to Kabul to define a boundary that would secure the empire and to negotiate with the Amir. The talks were tough, and they stretched through the autumn of 1893. The Amir resisted ceding key areas like Waziristan and the Khyber, citing honor and sovereignty. However, facing political realities and dependence on the British subsidies, an agreement was reached. The resulting Durand Agreement, written in English and Persian, defined a 2,430-kilometer frontier as the limit of respective spheres of influence. The British incentive was strategic clarity and cost-effective frontier management, not the creation of a modern, ethically coherent state. The tribes of the region lived by their own codes, crossing freely, disregarding the Durand Line's status of a de facto border. For the Wazirs, Afridis, Shivaris, and Muhammads, life and loyalties continued to transcend this new line. After Abdurrahman's death in 1901, his son, Habibullah Khan, reaffirmed the line in 1905 to preserve subsidies. Following the Third Anglo-Afghan War in 1919, Amanullah Khan signed the Treaty of Rawalpindi, accepting the frontier accepted by the late Amir. The Kabul Agreement of 1921 repeated it. Yet, a critical ambiguity persisted. It was consistently referred to as a frontier, a zone of control, not an unequivocal international boundary. This semantic gap was the crack through which decades of conflict would flow. The British withdrawal in 1947 created a new reality. The international legal principle of uti possideris juris was invoked, meaning the new state of Pakistan inherited the administrative borders of British India, including the Durand Line. For Pakistan, this was a matter of sovereign legitimacy and territorial integrity. The line was the legal foundation of the state. For Afghanistan, the departure of the British presented an opportunity to revisit what it saw as an unimposed and unjust arrangement. The Afghan state argued the agreement had been personal to the late Amir and had lapsed. Its position was that the division of Pashtun lands was illegitimate. This dispute led Afghanistan to cast the sole vote against Pakistan's admission to the United Nations. Afghanistan's rejection quickly moved from principle to policy. The government in Kabul launched a Pashtunistan campaign, asserting that the Pashtuns on the Pakistani side had the right to self-determination, potentially leading to independence or reunification with Afghanistan. From the 1950s to the 1970s, successive Afghan governments, including those of Zahir Shah and Daud Khan, revived claims for Pashtunistan, which Pakistan viewed not as an issue of self-determination, but as a Soviet-backed secessionist threat. Afghan's stance was derived from the following incentives. Number 1, the lost territories narrative. Afghan national identity, particularly for its ruling Pashtun elites, was built on the empire of Ahmad Shah Durrani. The lands east of the Durand Line were not just territory, they were a part of the national body amputated by the British. Accepting the line was seen as accepting a mutilated state by the Afghans. Number 2, weaponizing Pashtunistan. This was not a passive cultural idea. As the research shows, it was an active, state-funded irredentist policy. Afghanistan provided funds, ammunition, and propaganda to separatist elements within Pakistan. The goal, as scholar George Montagno noted, was a veiled irredentism, the creation of a weak Pashtunistan that would inevitably be absorbed into a greater Afghanistan. Number 3, strategic alliances. Afghanistan was a landlocked, economically weak state. The Pashtunistan issue became a tool of forward defense. By keeping Pakistan off balance, Kabul aimed to prevent its larger neighbor from achieving hegemony and to create a bargaining chip for future negotiations. This dispute gave Afghanistan this geopolitical value. When the United States aligned with Pakistan, Afghanistan leveraged its position to secure massive economic and military aid from the Soviet Union, which was eager to gain a foothold in this region. After Pakistan's independence, Afghanistan didn't just disagree with the border, they actively weaponized it. Successive Afghan governments, from the monarchy to the communists, provided safe haven, funding, and weapons to separatist elements within Pakistan's tribal belt. Their rallying cry, Pashtunistan. In practice, this meant cross-border incursions and state-sponsored unrest. The 1955 flag incident, where mobs stormed Pakistan's embassy in Kabul, wasn't just a random protest. It was a calculated state policy. The Cold War transformed the Durand Line from a bilateral dispute into an international proxy conflict. When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979, Washington saw a strategic opportunity to bleed its superpower rival, and Pakistan became that essential frontline state. The United States, working with Saudi Arabia and other Western allies, funneled billions of dollars in weapons and aid through Pakistan's intelligence services to Afghan resistance fighters. For Pakistan's military-led government by Zia-ul-Haq, this presented both an opportunity and a dilemma. While wary of Soviet retaliation, they calculated that a Western-backed victory could finally secure their western border and achieve their long-standing objective, i.e., a friendly government in Kabul that would accept the Durand Line. Under General Zia-ul-Haq's military government, Pakistan became the central conduit for what evolved into the largest CIA-covered operation in history. This alliance served multiple interests. Washington gained its proxy war against Moscow, while Pakistan's military establishment gained international legitimacy, modern weapons, and economic aid. All of this strengthened its dominant position in Pakistan's domestic politics. But this short-term convergence of interests created long-term consequences. The very militant groups that Pakistan and the US nurtured to fight the Soviets, particularly among the Pashtun refugees, would eventually evolve into the Taliban. When the Soviets withdrew and Western interest waned, Pakistan was left to manage the blowback alone. In a profound strategic reversal, the Taliban government that emerged refused to recognize the Durand Line. Even more devastating, they now provide sanctuary to the Pakistani Taliban, who launch attacks against the Pakistani state itself. Legally, Pakistan's position is reinforced by international law, including the 1969 Vienna Convention, which upholds the stability of inherited borders. Today, the international stance is unambiguous. Consequently, the United Nations, the United States, China, and the vast majority of the international community recognize the Durand Line as the legitimate international border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Yet, one entity remains opposed: the Afghan Taliban regime. Their refusal fits a pattern we have seen before, the same pattern that led to the cycle of proxy conflict within this region. While they stand alone in rejecting the border, their stance continues to fuel regional instability. The Durand Line today represents more than just a territorial dispute. It's become a test case for whether historical grievances can permanently override modern sovereignty. And as the fencing continues, we're witnessing the brutal logic of nation-states colliding with the enduring legacy of colonial cartography.